Cool. Welcome to the Whissel Way podcast. My name is Kyle Whissel, your host. I got a special guest I'm going to introduce you to here in a quick minute. But the way that we like to run this show, so you guys ever have a question you want to have us answer on the show, you can always go to thewhisselway.com. Ask us questions on there. Subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel. If you want to get some tips and tricks, you can join our private Facebook group and our email newsletter. And if you want to learn more about creating content, we have a course called the Media Mayor Mastermind, where Brian and I work together for over 10 years creating media. We'll teach you everything we've ever learned about creating media, whether it be audio, video, social, the whole nine. All of that stuff is at the Whissel Way. Today, we're going to change things up a little bit, and we've got somebody a little bit prettier than Brian in the guest seat today. My friend Chantel Ray in town in San Diego for a special event on multiple reasons for today to be a special day as well. So first, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Second, we're going to talk about a new book that you've written, which you've written some fun books. The one before this was
Delegate Everything But Sex.
Yes, that is one of the best book titles I think I've ever heard. So love it. Do you want to talk about the book now, or do you want to save that till later?
We'll save it.
Save that? All right, cool. Well, let's jump in. What's the event you're here in town for?
Yeah, it's actually a bunch of entrepreneurs that are like really, really high-end entrepreneurs that have really grown and scaled their business. And so we're just all getting together, kind of masterminding. I mean, these are like, and what's funny is it's such an elite group. I'm not even allowed to really say who's there, but it's one of the biggest names that you've ever heard of that have scaled their business. And that's kind of the new thing me and my husband are doing. So, my husband and I really haven't worked together. We've really done things a little bit separate. And now we're kind of joining forces a little bit. We're teaching. I love to just teach people how to scale their business because I've done so many things wrong. Yeah. And it's like, man, if I could have known some of these things before. I actually just love to share my mistakes that I've made because I think that's where people bond and that's how people grow. Like, nobody connects in the wins. Like, that's why I tell people, it's like, if you can really go deep with people and really share, like, here's how this messed up, here's where I'm going wrong right now. That's actually how people connect, is through losses and through trials and through storms. And at this event, I want to share something that someone said to me. It was so magical. Have you ever heard the story of the cow and the bison when you go through a storm?
I'm not.
Oh my gosh. So there's a cow and a bison, and when they go through storms, a cow actually runs away from the storm, and then they actually end up being in the storm so much longer. Well, what a bison does is they run full force into the storm, and they get it over with quick because they're running towards the storm. And that's who I used to be. I used to be just run through the storm, and I was the bison. But he said, Chantel, there's actually a better way, and that is the eagle. And what the eagle does is they fly over the storm, and they've built wings that actually are so strong through that storm, and they learn from that storm. They strengthen their wings, and then they rise above it. And it hit me on so many levels because there's so many times where I'm a grinder. I'm like, run through it. I'm the bison. And God has kind of just showed me, he's like, Chantel, just rise above. There's so many times in life where you can just be the eagle and rise above and kind of let things go. I've never, sometimes I'm like such a principled person, like I want to, do that. And I think being an eagle is what we all need to keep in mind. And it hit me. I mean, when he told me that, I was like, that's right. I'm going to be the eagle.
I love it. And that's, I think, something that comes with age too, and experience over time is when you're young, you tend to just charge forward constantly, blindly, a lot of times, and you make a lot of mistakes. You also have more successes when you do that, but you also are going to have some more failures when you do that. But when you actually get a little older, a little wiser, take more of that eagle approach, it starts to change things. Yeah. But then the thing I've also seen with people is some people have such a strong fear of failure that they never take any action. They literally just sit back and they're so scared to screw something up that they don't do anything, and therefore they never learn those lessons, and then they're just sitting there letting a storm consume them, and just sitting there paralyzed. So many people get stuck in like that analysis paralysis where it's like, I know people tell me I got to do this, I got to do that, I don't know, oh my gosh, and then they're gone. So I see that happen all the time. I'm sure.
Yeah, I agree. And well, I'm from this conference that I'm at. This is all a group of entrepreneurs. They're all Christians. And one of the guys said to me, he said, everything that you're going through right now is God testing your faith of whether you're going to trust him or not. And it was like, there's so many things. It's like, okay, God, am I going to trust you in this? And when you get to a place of full surrender, that's when you get to a whole nother level. And when I met these people at this conference, if I told you, every one of them over 25 million, a lot of them $100 million net worth, but the people there are so humble. They're not cocky. They're not arrogant. And when you can get to a place where you fully surrender your life, but also have this that you're just so humble where you realize like everything I have only comes from God. Yeah. I'm fully surrendered. That's when you can get to a whole new place in your life. It's kind of a magical place. So that's what I'm like just praying about. Like, okay, God, I want to fully surrender what I'm doing to you. And that's when I moved to EXP. That was the place where I had so much ego. And I was like, no, I'm going to create this company and it's going to be my name and it's going to, I'm going to be the CEO and I'm going to be the brand. And there was a couple of aha moments. One of them is when I found out Warren Buffett has so much stock in Coca-Cola, right? He makes 50 times how much the CEO of Coca-Cola makes. He has none of the headaches, none of the hassles. And so it was like, I can be part of this company. I can help it grow, but I don't have to get my ego in the way. And that's one of the things that I see that happens so much with people is they just are like, it has to be the Susie Jones team. And it's just ego, ego, ego. And when you can get back to that, that's back to that surrendering place where you can surrender and go, I don't have to be the CEO. I can actually make more money, than that person is. And there's so many people at EXP that make more money than the CEO, Exactly. And he's proud of it. Leo's like, I'm fine with that. Yeah. He understands that, hey, he has that abundance mindset.
Yeah. One of the things I've realized, we've been here 7 years now, and the thing I've found, the very simple form of it is when you're in the brokerage business where it's got to be your brokerage, the whole deal, you're in the loss mitigation business. You're constantly just putting out fires, avoiding lawsuits, trying to settle things. You're constantly stuck in that world. Not being in that world anymore, right? You've been the broker, I've been the broker. Now, as a team leader, I'm in the income generation business, right? So it's, what do you want to be in, the loss mitigation business or the income generation business? Because when somebody else is doing all the loss mitigation for me, and then I can just focus on my genius, my passion, I can be the Bison, I can run right through the storm. I can focus on income generation. And it's such a liberating feeling to know that I don't have to think about or worry about those things. And in the event a lawsuit hits, it's a simple hit the F key, which is forward in Gmail, and just tell people, hey, I got this letter, here's the situation, and they're going to take care of it for me. And I go back to doing what I do best, which is the income generation business. It's been one of the coolest things.
What would you say is if you had to give a team leader kind of one of your biggest mistakes that you've made in the past, what would you say that is?
I think one of the biggest things is people give up on stuff too early. They hear about this amazing strategy, whether farming is usually the biggest one that people make a mistake on, is they're like, I'm going to go into farming. And then they build this farming plan, and then they're sending out mailers, they're doing door knocking, they're paying for ads, they're doing all these things. And they do it for 3 months. They get no listings from it. And then they tap out. And I had a farm, and I farmed in the past, and I was that guy. I was like, oh, I looked at all the numbers. I was like, oh, this farm is great. There's high turnover. There's no dominant agent, all the things they tell you to look for in a farm. And I farmed it, but I wasn't passionate about the farm. I actually thought it was stupid because they were 3 and 4 story townhouses. I was like, why would anybody want to live in these? Which is why the turnover is high. But I wasn't passionate about it. I did it for a few months. I bought bus benches. I did mailers, and then I tapped out after 3 months. Then later, as I grew up more, became more of an eagle, I moved into a new neighborhood. I love the neighborhood. Obviously, I live there. Super passionate about it, committed to it, and got nothing for 12 months. But today, now it's been 7 or 8 years since I started farming that neighborhood. I've had 75% of the listings in that farm over the last 7 years because I was truly passionate about it. And I played the long game. I didn't stop after 3 months or stop after 6 months. It took 12 months to get that first listing in that farm. But now virtually every listing that comes up in that neighborhood is me, and I don't even have to compete against anybody, right? When I get the phone call, it's, hey, Kyle, will you help us sell our house? Not like we're interviewing agents. It's, will you help us? Like, that's the most amazing phone call. So now I have no competition. It's a matter of we're meeting simply to set the price and determine the date that we're going live and nothing else.
I think that's so good because I think that people hear something, they'll listen to your podcast and they'll go, oh, I'm going to do that. And I talk about it in my book, Tune In, God's Voice, Your Purpose, because what works for this guy may not work for you. And before you jump in all head first you want to ask God, okay, does this align? And I talk about there's 7 different buoys to hear from God that okay, is this my voice? Or is this God speaking to me right now? And there's 7 buoys and they all have to align before hey, this is what God's directing me to do. And people will listen to a podcast, they'll listen to this and they'll go, okay, I'm going to jump in head first before stopping for just a minute and going, okay, does this align with who God's created me to be? Like for me, I know there's tons of things that I've done in the past where I'm like, why didn't I just stop and pray about that and go, does this align with who God's created me to be? And I would honestly quickly say no, So what would you say is kind of the biggest thing for you that has kind of helped your leadership, like in the last year, like kind of grow?
It's more than a year ago, but I had a coach previously and he asked me, how many events had I been to in the last year to learn more about lead generation and conversion? And so I gave him a number. And then he said, okay, great. And then how much money have you spent learning about lead generation and lead conversion? And I gave him a number. And then he said, how many events have you been to learn how to be a better leader? How much money have you spent to learn how to be a better leader? And the answer was 0 on both of those. And the answer for lead generation and lead conversion was an extremely high number. And so it was a really good reality check of like, so many times we're spending all this time and this money and this energy on lead generation and lead conversion because it's sexy, that we forget to actually learn the more important thing as a team leader, which is, how do I be a better freaking leader? And by learning to be a better leader, you're not just a better leader for your business, you're a better leader for your family, you're a better leader for your community and everything. And so many of us spend very little time and very little money on learning how to be a better leader because we're so focused on the shiny object, which is the new app, the new widget, the new lead source, right? The new. We want all this new crap, but we're not focused on actually learning how to be a better leader. And if we can be a better leader, we can move mountains. But instead, we're so focused on just the new thing, the new this, the new that. And I think that really holds a lot of us back. And so for anybody who's watching or listening right now, like I would challenge you, ask yourself those questions, right? How much time and money have you spent focusing on learning more about lead gen and lead conversion? And how much time and money have you spent on learning how to be a better leader?
And I think, the answer that the question I would ask yourself is like, God cares more about who you are than what you can do. And so I think a lot of my worth and my value for a long time was like number 1 agent, number 1 team, number 1 this. And I'll never forget, I was the number 1 mega team in our whole area, and I had wanted to do that, and I hit it like 3 times in a row. And even the first time I won it, someone came up to me and they said, how does it feel? And I remember saying, it doesn't feel as good as I thought it would. Mm-hmm. And God kind of has, over the last year or 2, really kind of changed me to go, what really matters in life is how many lives that you're impacting, what kind of leader you are, who you're becoming. And so I feel like the last couple of years, I've had a lot of different trials. And, someone said to me, they were like, they know just some different health issues I've had. And they were literally like, I know you've been through a lot over the last couple of years, but this new version of Chantel, I liked the Chantel that you were, but this new version that you are, I absolutely love. And the only way that she said that was because I've gone through years of just pain and suffering, and none of us want that, and we all just avoid it like the plague. But the refining process that God puts us through is pretty magical, even though we hate the process to get there. And if you think about, gold, and I never knew that in a refining process, like if you think about it, they have to heat up the gold to like, gosh, I don't even know how many degrees, right? But it's like the fire that it has to go through. The amount of stuff that they're pulling out, if you think about 24 karat gold or like 15 karat gold, that's only the amount of the gold that is there. Right. So it's just so much of that stuff that gets purified out. And while you're going through it, it's definitely not fun. But I love sharing the mistakes that we've made. Is there anything else that you would say that mistakes that you've made that maybe someone could learn from?
I'll resonate with what you said about the like being number one thing, right? Like we got number one in the world with EXP last year, and I'm like, that's cool. But now actually I hate being number one. There's like this quest of like getting to the top of the mountain, and then you get there and you're like, now what? Now what do I do? It's a weird feeling. So I totally resonate with what you're saying there. It's like now you have all this external validation that you're number one, but now what? And are you truly fulfilled? Like it's an interesting thought that I think a lot of people struggle with. Is so many times we're chasing this thing, and then we get there and we're like, now what? And there's a group I'm part of, similar, like a high net worth group. And I went to the most recent event, and a lot of these guys are building companies to sell them. And so many people build their company and they sell it, and then they're lost. Like they got the big exit that they wanted, right? They built this company, sold it for tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, and they have that big exit, and then they're the least happy they've ever been in their entire life. It's like they have a mountain of cash in the bank, and they're less happy than they were when they were actually like in the grind and doing what they actually enjoyed. So it's like it's like a false summit, I believe is what they call it in like mountaineering and stuff, is you think that that's the top, and then you get there and you realize like this actually isn't the top. There's actually there's a better summit that's out there. And I think it's like you found that, and it's something I'm working on internally too, is that summit is not necessarily the same summit that we thought it is, which is the one that's about just the being number one at something. It's how many people have you impacted. People talk about legacy all the time, and like, what does that mean? It's like, do I want to be remembered for being number one, right? Like, I mean, that's cool and all, but like, I'd rather the amount of impact I've made on other people. And I'm a huge sports guy. And so in football, they have all these like coaching trees they talk about. So Bill Parcells was like this super famous coach, but he never actually got to the highest level and won the Super Bowl a ton of times. But what he did do is there's so many coaches that coached under him at some point in his career that have gone on to become Super Bowl winning coaches. And there's almost more pride in the fact that he taught all of these other people. They all learned so much from him while they were with him that they now got to that top level. And his name actually got lifted up higher because of all the success that he created with people that he had influence over. And to me, that's a bigger legacy than simply being the person who got there on your own.
100%. And the best analogy I've ever seen is if you take a rope and you imagine a rope and you take it from here to the moon 1 trillion times and back. That's eternity, right? And then if you take like a little dot, like this little dot, that's our time here on earth. It's so short. And so if we want to build a legacy here, it is an aha moment when you go, I could care less if I'm number one. I could care less if I'm the number one team, number one in the world. I'm number one at this, number one at that. There's only one thing that matters, and that is me changing lives here on earth for eternity. And so that's what this book is, tune in, God's voice, your purpose, figuring out what is your purpose? Like, why were you created? Why on earth were you here? And then to figure out how to build that. And so for me, now I'm all about like self-development. Now I've kind of shifted a little bit into growing people. And so that's why for me at EXP, it's so powerful, because I can now have people under me that I can really not just help them with real estate, but I can help them change their life and their God-given purpose and really changing them in a different way.
I love that. So in the book, talk about does somebody find that purpose, right? Like, because there's so many people that I feel like are living a purposeless life, right? They have no purpose. They just, they wake up, this is what I do. I wake up, I drop my kids off, I go to work, I come home, I feed the kids, I go to bed. And there's no purpose in life. They're just here, but they're not going anywhere. And again, it's not that it has to be anything monetary, but how do they find like that purpose? How do they find that fulfillment?
Yeah. So the book's actually broken up into two parts. The first part is hearing God, because if you can't find your purpose unless you have the Creator who created you to tell you what your purpose is, right? So that's first step. So it goes over 8 buoys, kind of like number 1 is like the Word of God. Number 2 is like godly friends. Another one is like doors opening and doors closing. So just making sure that once you ask him, you're staying silent enough to be able to hear him. And one of the most magical things that we've done is on Sundays, we've literally locked our phones. First of all, it's funny, I just read in the Bible today, we were reading, I have been extending my time in the Bible to about an hour and a half to 2 hours a day, where it's not the whole time reading, but it's journaling, it's spending time. I set a timer for 15 minutes. I literally put my phone onto the side, and I don't ask God for anything. I just listen. Okay. That's it. And so I literally, on Sundays, we've been just putting our phone in the safe, and we don't touch it at all. That sometimes putting your phone down is one of the most amazing things that you can do. Getting out in nature, hearing from God is really good. And then the other half of the book talks about purpose. And there's it's almost like a Venn diagram. And it goes, what do I love doing? What can I get paid for doing? What goes with my gifts and talents? And then also, what can I get paid for? So it's kind of like, okay, if I love to sing, like I'm a terrible singer, like don't even think about that. Like that's not going to work, right? Because that's not what God's created me to do. So it's almost like a Venn diagram that all of them have to align. Yeah. And we actually help people by getting them on Zoom calls with some of their closest friends. And we have a list of questions that we go through. And you have that group of people that can kind of help ask those questions, because it's really about just someone asking you those questions, and then you have your own aha moments of what that is. So it's just, I know for a long time, one of the things I did was I was always asking God for stuff. And so I'd be like, and I need to pray about this, and I need to pray about this, and blah, 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 blah. It's like word vomit, right? Mm-hmm. What changed was when God actually spoke to me when I was silent. Because it's like a conversation, it's two-way street. It's not just me talking. It's like a ping pong ball. Yep. We can't play the game if someone's just holding the ball and going, got it, now I want this, and now I want this, and now I want this, now I want that. It doesn't work. Yeah.
And there's been push toward these silent type retreats, right? Where you're going away for a weekend, for a week. I've talked to somebody who went away for a month with no words. And it's amazing the stories that come out of that, the growth that comes out of that, of the word that people hear from God, what they have, the internal conversations, and the fact they realize they don't need all of the words, they don't need all of the things, that just by being silent, how many things will come to you. And so many times we think we have to talk so much to find these things. In reality, the less we talk, the more we can learn, the more we can find ourselves, the more we can connect.
So good. I'll share one story in here that I talked about, the loudest that I ever heard God speak to me in my life. And it was probably about like 8 years ago. And it was me and my friend. She wasn't a Christian. And we were on the boardwalk in Virginia Beach back when I lived there. And we were running. And she was like, we were talking, and all of a sudden I saw this lady with like a book reading on the side. And she said, I felt God saying, go pay for a hotel room for her for a week. And I'm like, I'm running. I don't have a purse. This is back when I was in better shape. I was running, not like just jogging. Yeah. And finally, a couple of seconds later, it was like I felt the Holy Spirit say, go pay for a hotel room for her for a week. And then I kept ignoring it over and over. And finally, I just kept running. We were now a mile and a half past her. Yeah. And finally, I felt God saying, turn around now. Like the loudest I've ever been. Like, I mean, I was like scared. I looked at my friend who's not a Christian and I said, you're going to think I'm a wacko, but God told me to go pay for this hotel room for this girl. Just follow me. So we go back and run for a mile and a half. And the girl was sitting there and she was homeless, but she didn't look homeless when I had seen her before. And she said, I said, I know this is really weird, but God told me to pay for a hotel room for you for a week. I said, I know that's just so strange. She starts bawling, crying. And she said, I sat here with my Bible and I said, God, if you're real, pay for someone to have a hotel room for me for a week because my friend just got out of the hospital who's also homeless and she has to have a hotel room to recover in. And so now my friend is crying and we're all crying. And it was just, when you listen to those promptings that you hear, and they're small whispers, but that was the loudest it's ever been for me. But most of the time it's just a nudge or like a prompting that you should do this or do that. And the more that you listen to those promptings, magical things will happen. And so that's what I'm hoping will happen from this book, is that people will really be able to hear him. Because if you think about your relationship, the most important thing in any relationship is communication. Well, if God is the most important thing in our lives, and it should be God and then your spouse and then kids, then us being able to hear and having that communication is probably one of the most powerful things that you can have. So that's why I wrote it.
I love it. So if they want to grab the book, where can they find it?
Just on Amazon.
All right. I love it. So we'll make sure we'll link to that in the show notes. And if they want to stay connected with you, what's the handle on Instagram?
It's the Chantel Ray.
The Chantel Ray. Not to be confused with just normal Chantel Ray. It's the real one. Okay, guys. If you want to stay connected, at Kyle Whissel. If you guys got value out of the show today, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Let YouTube know you enjoyed it. If you have a question, throw it in the comment section, and I'll either respond to that or I'll connect you with Chantel, and she'll respond to that for you. If you want more of the show, hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, make sure to hook us up with a review. Those reviews go a long way. And maybe share your biggest takeaway from today, or maybe a story of something that's happened in your life where you've had a big learning lesson, or you've heard the word. Would love to see that in there. Outside of that, want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of the Whissel Way podcast. We'll see you next time.